So HSR 3.4 had a pretty packed patch with a pretty big story and the much awaited Fate collaboration. And since the patch is so big, I'm going to forgo my usual detailed story explanation. Basically what you have to know is that this entire patch focuses on our favorite kill-stealing hyena, Phainon, what his role is as a Chrysos heir, and the existential nightmare he's been stuck in. As I'm sure everyone already knows, this is the most romantic story ever told. Long ago, at the inception of Amphoreus, Phainon started his heroic journey as Kephal's demigod alongside Cyrene, who played the role of Oronic's demigod of time. Problem is, their entire journey led them to the very same end that we've experienced in the previous version. The sky goes blood red, everything is glitching out, and the world is ending. This is where they learned that what the Chrysos heirs were striving for, that ever-desirable Era Nova, was a lie, and that finding and absorbing all of the core flames was actually the fuel needed to birth a new Lord Ravager of the Destruction known as Iron Tomb. Faced with this devastating truth, Cyrene and Phainon come to a decision. Cyrene would sacrifice herself as the demigod of time to continuously reset the simulation of Amphoreus over and over again to allow Phainon to continuously absorb multiple core flames into his body and gather enough power to stop Iron Tomb's release. And so the loops begin, where Phainon would go through the same journey over and over again, gathering core flames and trying to warn his friends about the truth of Amphoreus' simulation. Sometimes they believed him, other times they didn't, and sometimes this distrust earned him the suspicion and ire of his friends, causing them to eventually turn on and attack Phainon. Trying to convince his friends multiple times in multiple different ways always proved to be fruitless, and eventually all of the fights, all of the deaths took a toll on his emotions, to the point where he could barely feel anything when killing his friends. With his emotions eroded to non-existence after hundreds of loops, he came to the conclusion that it was easier and faster to just kill his friends outright, take their core flames, and move to the next loop. But his mind and body had his limits. Resetting so many times broke his mind, and absorbing so many core flames shattered his body, turning him into a shell of his former self, eventually becoming the shade known as the Flame Reaver. This, however, meant that at one point, his body would give in to all that strain and leave him powerless to fulfill his objective. Thankfully, he was able to find a way to continue regardless of his body's broken state. He found a way to transfer his memories and his core flames to a new body if he would be killed in battle by his own copy. You see, this isn't really him being stuck in a time loop. Time is constantly moving forward, it's just the simulation of Amphoreus that gets reset at the end of every loop. Phainon is just traveling from one reset to the next, and every new loop births new copies of not just his friends, but of himself as well. Every new loop comes with a new Phainon, and throughout multiple loops, he had to eliminate his own copy either to take its place or to gain the core flame. However, when the strain becomes too much and his body is about to break down, he can be killed by his own copy and have his memories and core flames be absorbed by the copy, and every single time the copy is forced to make a decision. Either give up and let Iron Tomb escape, or continue to suffer these endless loops in search of more power. And every single time, over and over again, Phainon chooses to keep walking the bloodstained path. I have to give props to the guy for such wild determination that borders on the edge of madness. Can you imagine how abhorrent of an experience it must be to have to murder everyone you hold dear and try to justify it to yourself that it's for their own good? I swear, me stabbing this sword through your guts is crucial to your overall health and well-being. Phainon is somehow both speedrunning and marathoning depression at the same time. As time goes on, Phainon manages to experience 33,550,336 loops and collect a total of 402,604,032 core flames. And even with all of that power, he still barely managed to scratch God. It's not for nothing though, as apparently the prophecy was never meant for him. Instead, it was meant for a traveler that would come to Amphoreus from beyond the stars. Yes, it's somehow you, the Trailblazer, and before Phainon goes off on his merry Aeon hunt, you basically NTR him out of everything he holds dear. You take his role in the story as the savior of Amphoreus, you take his girl, you even take away the heroic spirit that resides within him. Man, I never thought I'd ever get to feel bad for being the bull in a relationship. And HSR really needs to have an NTR warning for this patch. But that's pretty much how the patch story ends. Phainon goes out to fight Nanook, and Trailblazer is left flirting with Cyrene before they get ready to ruin Iron Tomb's day. But what about the Fate collab, I hear you say? I don't like Fate, so we're not doing that. Okay, fine, I get it. At some point, somehow, Trailblazer makes his way back to Penacony, where old Oti is holding his very own Holy Grail war after managing to nab a Holy Grail from the local thrift shop. The summoning ritual takes place and everyone gets their own heroic spirit, with us getting Saber, Boothill getting Lancer, Aventurine getting Archer, Robin getting Caster, and Scott? Who the fuck cares about Scott? Anyway, even though I'm not a big Fate fan, I completely dislike how they handled the lore tie-in with this collaboration. They completely reworked the summoning system so that it doesn't work off of Magecraft, and they completely removed the original 100% canon way for masters to share their mana with their servants from the visual novel. If you know, you know. They made it tie in such a way that they wouldn't need to uphold the responsibility of having it make sense and have consequences. Like a Lego piece from an entirely different set that fits, only to be removed whenever it's convenient. Reminds me of that time when World of Warcraft made an entire expansion about going back in time and changing the past, but had to avoid outright changing the game's present by also adding that it's a parallel world. So you can basically live out the fantasy of changing the past without any of the consequences, which I would argue are also an important part of the fantasy. But to make a long story short, we get our spirits, allied together against Scott, who uses Mr. Rekka as their assassin servant. We get swallowed by his noble phantasm that puts us in a silent horror flick. We beat the heck out of him, and just as we're about to head up to Old Odie and put an end to the Holy Grail War, Robin's servant betrays us and sends us to another illusory realm made up of our own memories, with her own noble phantasm, I might add. Here, Saber decides to stay as the girl who never pulled out Excalibur, and we are put in a world where we never boarded the Express. But eventually, our instinct to rebel wins out, and we break out of the noble phantasm to pursue Old Odie, who reveals his true motive for holding the Holy Grail War. Money. No, I'm not joking. That's it. That's the wish he wants to make of the Holy Grail. He also reveals that the servant he summoned is himself, and since history remembers him as a money-grubbing parasite, that's the perfect reason to reuse an old boss from over a year ago. Truly a disappointment that we couldn't at least get an original boss for one of the most anticipated gacha collabs of 2025. The event basically ends with us destroying the Grail, everyone saying their goodbyes, and Old Odie, the real one this time, says goodbye to Mr. Rekka and Asna. Overall, the event was okay in terms of story, but didn't really have anything too wild happening in there, nor anything of any lasting consequence. Like I said, a piece of Lego that fits and that can be removed once you're done with it. So what are my thoughts on the patch? Well, I'm not too big of a fan of the event because I don't really like Fate all that much. I am more of a Drifters enjoyer myself, where historical figures don't get turned into waifus. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but to each their own. Now, if we're talking about the main story of 3.4, I am very pleased with how they delivered this reveal and capitalized on the build-up up until this point. Secrets were revealed for both Phainon and Amphoreus. We got to see Phainon's slow descent into cruelty and madness. We even made Cyrene our girlfriend. Of course, things can always be improved upon, but this time I think I'm satisfied with what we got. One concern I do have is for the future, however. Considering where we left off in the story at the end of 3.4, we have two options. One, we just start our war against Iron Tomb right then and there, or we go into a new cycle where everyone comes back to life, including Phainon. If I were to make a wager, I'd say the latter is the more probable path because we know we need to meet Hysolins and Saridra, and if that's the case, I have to wonder if they'll let Phainon keep his memories. Normally that shouldn't be the case because a new cycle always creates a new Phainon. But at the end of the cinematic, it made it look like the Phainon that fought against Nanook, the one we know, reverted to a kid at the end and got placed into Aedes Elysiae for a new loop. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a visual metaphor or something that actually happened, but if he does keep his memories, I would like to see Phainon acknowledge the pain he's been through throughout these millions of lifetimes. Otherwise, if he has these memories and he just goes back to being the usual Phainon, it's not going to look good from a storytelling perspective. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to say. I'm waiting for patch 3.5 to drop so that I can see the hyped up fight, meet Phainon 2.0 and Malter, and get one step closer towards Amphoreus' conclusion. But that's going to be it for me. Let me know what you guys think of the story so far. Did Phainon's story strike a chord with you, or did his plight not impress you at all? What about the Fate collab? Was it worth the wait, or did it disappoint? Please leave your thoughts in the comments down below, leave a like and a comment if you've enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, have a good one.